Hello, Goffstown. I'm Jim Craig, and I'm your host for today's edition of Goffstown Today, the local public affairs program brought to you by the Goffstown Democratic Committee. The 2021 legislative session is winding down now, and a lot of important issues are being hammered out in committees of conference. And so it's a good time to check in on where the state and the legislature stand financially. And today we're fortunate to have someone with us who has served as our state senator since 1998, who currently serves as vice chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, and was also on the Capital Budget Committee. Of course, I'm talking about the Dean of the New Hampshire Senate, Lou D'Alessandro. Good to have you on, Lou. You're looking good, and it's nice to see that you made it through the pandemic, looking just as good as you did before we went into it.
Thank you, Jim. Always a pleasure to be with you, the number one selectman in Goffstown, and Jimmy Craig, representing the Democratic Party and our Democratic views. So appreciate that very much. And as always, congratulations on your election. You've assumed your duties now as a selectman in the town of Goffstown, which is a great town. A lot of wonderful things happen in Goffstown. A lot of terrific people, and it's I think it's a credit to all of you that the town functions so well.
Yeah, it really is. We've been here for a few years now, and you just love it more every day, And like you, I've been in Manchester all my life, and I never realized what a nice thing they had out here. So I'm glad I'm here, and I got a lake with it too, so it's great.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I wish I could say the same for the state budget. That it really hasn't been a pleasurable year. It's been a very difficult year, and I served on finance, served on Ways and Means, and served on capital budget. And I'm not on the committee of conference on the operating budget. I had a little health issue, and as a result, Cindy Rosenwald is sitting as the Democrat on the conference committee and doing a terrific job. Cindy from Nashua is a former member of the House of Representatives and very astute particularly on matters that relate to health and human services. She does an outstanding job there. But I think, Jimmy, one of the things that I think is remarkable is the fact that as we sit here today, as of the end of the month of May, our economic plan, our revenues were $275 million ahead of plan. And when you do the anomalous revenues that were accrued in one year and accounted for in another year, that was 30 million. You take 30 million away, and you got a $245 million surplus so far as we're proceeding through the month of June. And remember that our fiscal year ends on the 30th of June. So from a financial standpoint, we weathered the pandemic very well. And initially, on the COVID money, $1.25 billion was allotted to the state of New Hampshire. The Gopher Committee was set up, and a number of other committees to dispense that money. There's still $25 million that's held in reserve, and that's going to be allocated. It has to be allocated within the next year, and hopefully that money will be spent wisely to, again, continue to keep the economy moving in the right direction. Now, with the change of administration, and as a result of the pandemic, which lasted over a year and a half, remember that we were in really kind of lockdown. Emergency powers granted to the governor for over a year and a half, over 300 plus days, when the governor had total authority over the monies that were brought into the state of New Hampshire, that 1.25 billion. And I think, as I said, I think we weathered the storm. I think we did a pretty good job. The allocation of those monies was done with the help of the Gopher Committee. I think some of the gives were good, some were more too good. But indeed, with the $25 million reserve, there is an opportunity to do more good with that money. Now, on top of that, we're going to get from the American Recovery Act, and this is the Biden administration's push, we're going to get $1 billion, which will come through the state. And the Legislative Fiscal Committee accepted over 100 million in its last meeting. And the cities and towns all received an allocation. Goffstown received an allocation. Manchester got 44.5 million. I don't know what the exact number was for Goffstown, but that money comes from the American Recovery Act directly to the town of Goffstown. And the counties got money.
Does that money come with any strings? I'm sure it does.
Well, I think there are some guidelines on how you can spend that money, but I think the point is, Jimmy, we got more money than we've ever seen. More money has been distributed by the federal government than was distributed during the Great Depression when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president of the United States. So we're awash with money, is what I'm saying. And as a result of that, I think many good things can be done, and some good things are being done. But on the other hand, when you look at the budget and when you look at the social items that are in the budget, then they're in my opinion anti what New Hampshire has been for many years, particularly in the area again in the women's issues. As it relates to abortion and a woman's right to choose.
Let me stop you for a second, Senator.
Yes, sure.
I apologize. I lost you for a chunk of time there. So if I ask you something that you've already talked about, that's why. But one of my questions was, I know it's been a problem in the House, or at least from my perspective, it's a problem. But how about the Senate? Has national politics seeped into the New Hampshire Senate? Is it like it is on the national scene?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's a great point, Jim. That's a great point, and you're exactly right. National politics has come right down to the local level here. You got the Republicans in the House of Representatives that are, in one corner, the Democrats are in the other. Remember that the budget passed the House of Representatives without one Democratic vote, and I think 2 Republicans voted against it. And in the Senate, you will see a 14-10 vote. I'm pretty sure of that 14 Republicans will vote for it, and the 10 Democrats will vote against it. And I think it's a tragedy that at a time when we have so much, we're recovering from a pandemic. We did a very good job, to be honest with you. I mean, only Vermont has a vaccination rate that's higher, almost 80% in Vermont, and I think we were getting close to 60%. That's great. I mean, because what's the one thing that can save us from this terrible pandemic? And it's the vaccination, and we must credit the science of the 21st century for coming up with a vaccine as quickly as they did. And we came up with 3, the Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson all came up with vaccines that are enormously effective. And we should be encouraging every one of our constituents to get vaccinated. Both my wife and I have had both shots. We had the Moderna. I mean, you got a little jolt in that second one, but I think generally speaking, we're the beneficiaries of the great science that the United States has produced, and we're doing our share to help people around the world. The tragedy, Jimmy, is 600,000 people have died from the virus. 600,000 people in our country alone have passed, and we still have people being infected on a daily basis. But we're making great strides, and I think that's very important. If there's an overall message that we should get to all of our constituents, it's get vaccinated. Wear a mask when you think it's appropriate, because the virus is spread through the air, and pay attention. Take care of yourself. Pay attention, and if you do these things, you'll be saving your life. And what's more important than saving your own life?
Great. So let me ask you a little bit about the budget. And,
yes.
And if you said that again, I lost you for a little bit, but you're saying New Hampshire's getting $1 billion. I mean,
Yes.
that's incredible to me.
Yes, yes.
And so where is the state budget right now? And does the state budget as proposed include that $1 billion?
No, the state budget
No.
is one thing. That $1 billion is in excess of everything that's been appropriated by the state. That's direct appropriation that didn't come through the budget process. Now, if you look at the budget for the state of New Hampshire, and I'm sure it's going to pass today. I think House Bill 1 passed and House Bill 2 will pass. I think we will spend about $13.5 billion. That'll be the aggregate amount of money spent for the next 2 years over the next biennium. You know, and that money will come from three sources. It'll come from revenues, direct revenues produced by our local our taxes. It'll come from federal monies that come into the state, and basically they're in the area of health and human services and in the highway situation, and then other funds. And other funds are a combination of funds that are put together. So those are the three basic ingredients of the operating budget. And as I said, when you look at it, the general fund for the plan, about the same. The governor 5.5 billion, the House 5.4 billion, and the Senate 5.49 billion. So they're basically the same. The question is how you allocate the money and the other social programs that are involved in the
Did the pandemic affect the revenues?
I think we were astonished by the strength of the revenues, Jimmy. When you can produce a budget that's $275 million above plan in a pandemic, that is amazing. Our business taxes.
That is amazing. Is there an explanation for that?
I think the explanation is there are certain big payers of our business profits tax and business enterprise tax that did very, very well. People like Comcast, people like Fidelity, people like the gun manufacturers. They all did very well. Very big on sales, and as a result, the profits were there. And remember, about 80 companies pay almost 90% of the business profits tax. So you know that the big companies did very, very well. And that's another situation in the budget where we're lowering business profits tax, we're lowering business enterprise tax, we're eliminating the interest and dividends tax, we're lowering the rooms and meals tax at a time when that doesn't have to be done. People are doing very, very well, and there's no need to do that. And I believe that we will see the effects of that in the out years, in the next year, beyond this budget and into the next budget. We're going to have problems because we are depleting our revenue sources, and I don't think that's a very smart thing to do. But
that's a philosophical thing. Everybody, they do it all.
Yeah,
they always try to do that, and then they can go up to the election saying we lowered your taxes and we carry. So
exactly.
But then it's like you say, down the line we got a problem, and kicking the can.
Right, and we do that. We do that in New Hampshire, and we do that very well. And then when you look at some of the other ingredients in the operating budget, I think when you look at the women's issues, Jimmy, that are part of House Bill 2, as they relate to abortion and the 24 weeks. New Hampshire's never had this. We've been the live free or die state, and we've been very reasonable when it comes to women's rights. We've had the Planned Parenthood battle year after year after year, but Planned Parenthood is a source of health care, not only for women, but for men.
Right.
And healthcare, healthcare, it's so important in today's world. And we have those who are financially distressed and they need healthcare. And where do they go? They go to Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood has been attacked over and over again. And here we have a governor who said that he was a pro-choice governor.
Right.
And yet everything in this budget is anti-choice. And I think directly contradicts what he was preaching when he was running for governor. And I think that's shameful in my opinion. And the tax situation tells me that they're doing one thing. You know, they're the old Robin Hood story in reverse. Rather than aiding the poor, we're stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. We're making the rich richer and we're making the poor poorer. So we got Robin Hood right at the top of our schedule. He's in reverse. He's changed his clothes.
So I'm just curious, was that abortion bill a standalone bill at some point? And
it was
somebody,
but then it was incorporated. It was a standalone bill. It was, I think it was Senate Bill 625, and it was incorporated into the budget and voted on yesterday when they were working on House Bill 2. So again, very disappointed. Very disappointed.
So can that be stopped now? Or I mean, if somebody is really opposed to that, is it a done deal? That you either get a budget with that abortion clause in there, or you don't, right?
Well, I think it's a done deal, Jim. I think it's a done deal. And Representative Ober, who's vice chair of the House Finance Committee, brought forth the motion to put it into the budget, to keep it into the budget, and came up with some new language, and it was accepted. So it's a done deal. And you know that when it gets this far, both parties they're caucusing, and I think the House Republicans are caucusing, and those who were on the fringes and who wanted more stringent regulations and more in there have they've been tossed a bone, and the word on the street is that it's going to pass, that they've got enough in there that they like, that it's going to pass. So what do you do? The Republicans have a majority in both the House and the Senate, and a majority on the Executive Council, and they have a majority. They have the governor. So what do you do in that case? You've been around the legislature long enough, Jimmy, to know that.
I know. I just think it's I think it just subverts the democratic process. I'm not naive. I know it happens all the time. They try to do it, and both parties. And but I think there's a committee process. There's debates and all that stuff, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You live or die on each issue, and then it gets thrown into the budget, or then it just to me that's not what it's supposed to be about. And I think you agree to that. Most people agree with that, but it happens all the time. And I think our legislators we're one of the cleaner legislatures, I think, in at least my experience, and but it happens.
I think you're exactly right. It happens. It happens, Jim, because as time has gone on, and you're in the legislature, the legislature has become more polarized.
Yep.
The polarization that really is pervasive throughout the country. New Hampshire can't escape it. And when you got 400 members in the House, 24 members in the Senate, you got a large legislative body, you got 424 people. It happens. And I think it happened during the O'Brien years, and I think you were in the House during the O'Brien years. And we thought that was miserable. And look at some of the things that happened during the O'Brien years, reducing the cigarette tax and hoping that you were going to, sell more cigarettes by reducing. That was a total failure. That was a damn calamity. And we hurt ourselves on the health side as well as on the financial side. But the polarity has become pervasive, and that's sad. Because, as you say, we do have the committee process. We have the introductory process. We have the committee process. Sometimes the bills are even sent to a second committee to be looked at. Then they're voted on by the House and by the Senate, and they move forward. But I think we have to wake up and think about these things. People got to pay more attention to what's going on in government. That to me is the key issue. And look, there's $100 million reduction in the sweat tax, and that was the statewide tax that was used for education. $100 million reduction. Now that reduction supposedly is a tax saving for people at the local level. Well, that tax was never brought anyplace except retained at the local level. And some, even if that sweat produced more than you needed at the local level, it was retained at the local level. So now that has been reduced by $100 million. There's been a supplement with some general funds, and the education trust is going to have enough money in it to pay the bills. But what's going to happen going forward? Is that going to be a repetitive process? And again, does that make any sense? And what about our education freedom accounts, which allows money to be taken from the education trust, given to the individual, then they can use it for homeschooling, they can use it for another school, they can use it in any way they want. And in my opinion, that's the beginning of the demise of public education. Now in Goffstown, we're very proud of our education system, K through 12. You know, we have that kindergarten, and we have the two elementary schools, and we have the middle school, and then we have Goffstown High School. And we've done, I think the town has done a very good job at supporting education, but delivering on education and producing the whole social benefit that benefits the entire community. So these education freedom accounts go contrary to that, and we'll see how that works. And Edelblum, the Commissioner of Education, has been a proponent of this. Well,
Right, I know that.
It's the beginning of the destruction of public education. This
Is
society.
that in the budget, or?
It's in the budget, yes.
Was that a standalone bill, or was that in the budget? Huh?
No, it's in the budget.
So, yeah.
It was brought forth.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's the start of good. So is there anything? So I'm curious. I mean, I'm still at $1 billion over and above the regular budget.
Right.
And you said that it's going to be dispersed to a whole bunch of different entities. I think
Yes.
I heard you say.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
who makes that decision? And who makes that decision?
Well, the monies are
Where the
accepted.
money goes?
Well, I think the legislature is going to have a say in it, because the legislature accepted the money at the last fiscal committee, and pockets of money were distributed to different entities. Health and Human Services got some money, admin services got some money, and some of this money is being used to bring our buildings up to par, to restore our dilapidated buildings, which have been neglected for years and years and years and years. So some of it, hopefully some of it's going to be used in the right way. And as a result of that, we will be the beneficiary. But as I say, this is more money than we've ever seen, Jim. It's more money that's been distributed, even more money than during the Great Depression. So
Can it be used to lower tax rates?
Well, it's not supposed to be used to lower tax rates. It's the original language of the bill said if you used it for lower tax rates, you suffered a dollar for dollar pushback. For every dollar you spent on lowering your tax rates, you lost a dollar from the grant. That's going to be tested. You know, as the good lawyer that you are, you know everything gets tested. So there'll be court cases that will deal with this. But
So it really is intended to be an economic stimulus and
yes,
to get us
exactly
push out of the pandemic, financial push.
right. Bring back the economy, and the economy is soaring now. I think the great problem, if you're a financial guy, is inflation. And we've seen inflation. I think we were at the grocery store a couple of days ago, and you notice the prices have gone up. Inflation rate was at 5% for the last couple of months, and that's a dangerous situation. We've got to avoid inflation, because inflation just kills the ability of your dollar to give you a dollar's value. So we got a problem.
Around this time of year, gas prices always go up when everybody's going away on, it's amazing coincidence.
Yeah, and Jimmy, that's the one part of our economy that's suffering. I think we're 15 million light in terms of revenues from the gas tax. So people aren't traveling as much, or they didn't, obviously because of the pandemic, but that's something that we're going to have to look at. And as a result, for the first time in a long time, $50 million general fund dollars was given to the Department of Transportation to keep them going. Otherwise, they would have been at zero. And that's a place where you can't be. And another thing they snuck in to House Bill 2 was another reduction in the tolls. The Merrimack tolls. This is the third time the tolls have been reduced on the Effie Everett Turnpike in Merrimack. Now listen, the toll roads run based on the revenue that they produce. The bond issues that we get out there to pay for improvements on the turnpike are paid for with toll revenues. We have reduced toll revenues dramatically. We're continuing to do that, and yet we want great roads, right? Because we want access to New Hampshire to be the best. We want the roads plowed properly. We want them paved properly. We want them maintained properly, and yet we eliminate the ability to do that on the toll roads. And I think we've set some dangerous precedents, Jim. This is the third time that the toll reductions have been in the trailer bill. We defeated this bill on the floor of the Senate. It was tabled, and yet it comes up in the trailer bill, and we reduce the tolls. And again, that's not a good way to.
Lou, I know you're in the opposition in Concord right now, but are there any good things that are good for the people of New Hampshire in the budget? The things
Jimmy, there are always good things in the budget. In the area of mental health, we're suffering some real problems, and we put some money to take care of mental health for adults and for children. Transitional housing, there's $25 million for housing, which is kind of never been done before. Remember, we allocated $5 million a year out of the tax, the real estate transfer tax, and now you got a $25 million a one-timer. That's a big deal. I think that's very, very important.
Didn't the courts order the state to do?
Yes, that was as a result of an act, because we were on the mental health side, we were holding people longer than we should have. So we had to do something to deal with mental health. So there are always good things in the budget. There are always good things. The question is, do the overriding social concerns, do they negate all of the good things because of the problems that they're going to create, going forward? And should this be in the budget that deals with the finances of the state? And that's a quandary. House Bill 2 has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year. Every biennium, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And as a result, it's a policy manual rather than a financial piece of legislation. And think about this. If that's the case, what do you need the legislature for? If all policy is brought.
Exactly right. And plus, when by one party, that's a recipe for a disaster if you're in the other party,
Right, exactly. And both parties have done this.
Sure.
I chaired the finance committee in the last budget. There were many complaints about that. There were many complaints about what we did, and some of them were justified. But I think the most significant thing is you try to do the best for the people, for all of the people, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. I think we've crossed a threshold here. We've done things that shouldn't have been done. They should not be in House Bill 1. They shouldn't have been in House Bill 2, and as a result, we're going to have what we have, and that'll be a polarized legislature. It'll be a budget that stands for 2 years and causes problems for the following 2 years, and let's see who's going to be here to create that budget.
Yeah, like I said, we're the granite state, but nothing is written in granite in Concord. So that's the good thing in this situation. But so I think we're out of town, Senator. We're out of time, Senator. And I appreciate again. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and you always are interesting and have. It's just nice. You're one of those guys that really cares about the people he represents, and that I always I tease you a lot. You are always there for the guy on the street, and
Thank you.
you know,
Thank you,
you
Jim.
can never have enough people like you. So
Well,
let
thank
let me
you.
just do the closing here.
And thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Lou. You can watch these programs here on GTV through the video pages of our website, Goffstown Dems, by searching for the Goffstown Democrats on YouTube channel or on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Goffstown Dems. Please like and share them widely, and thank you for watching.